The number one mistake I see new photographers make has nothing to do with their camera, nothing to do with the lens, nothing to do with the settings. It's way simpler than that. They don't know what they're trying to take a picture of. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, but stay with me. What happens is people pick up a camera, they get excited, maybe they just dropped a couple $1,000 on new gear, and now they're out shooting everything. And I mean everything. Trees, buildings, random people walking by, their dog, their coffee, a parked car, another tree, a slightly different tree. Then they get home, load the photos up, and they all feel kind of meh. Nothing stands out. Nothing feels intentional. Nothing feels like a photo. It just feels like a bunch of pictures. And here's where it splits into two directions, and both of them are a problem in their own right. On one side, you've got people whose work just feels like photojournalism. And I don't mean actual high-level intentional photojournalism. I mean, it feels like they just walked around documenting whatever was in front of them with zero thought behind it. No subject, no story, no direction. Just, here's what I saw today. Cool. So did everyone else. And there's nothing wrong with documenting life, but if there's no intention behind it, it's not interesting to anyone except you. And then on the other side, you've got people who discovered photography, got bit by the bug, dive into editing, and go completely off the rails. Everything is just cranked to 100. Colors become insane. Skin tones look like they came from a different species. The sky is some neon orange purple combination that has never existed in the history of Earth. The whole image looks like it was taken on another planet. And you're sitting there like, what am I even looking at? And both of these come from the same root problem. No clear subject, no clear intent. Because if you actually know what your photo is about, you don't need to hide behind crazy edits. You don't end up with random meaningless frames either. A good photo has a clear subject, one thing, maybe two if you know what you're doing. But there's a clear answer to the question, what am I supposed to be looking at? And if you can't answer that immediately when you look at your own photo, that's the problem. You ever look at someone's photos and your eyes just kind of wander around? You're like, okay, there's a tree, there's a building, there's a person, I guess maybe that's the subject. That's not a photo. That's a Where's Waldo situation. And nobody wants to work that hard to figure out what you're trying to show. And the over-editing crowd isn't any better because now instead of wondering what the subject is, we're trying to figure out what planet we're on. Like, congratulations, you learned how to use every slider in Lightroom. That doesn't mean you should. If your first reaction to your own photo is this looks insane, that's probably not a good thing. Unless that's just your style and you're going for a creative look, knock yourself out. But neither of those approaches will get you any better. Walking around taking random photos with no intention doesn't improve your eye, and cranking every slider to 100 doesn't fix a weak photo. It just hides it until someone looks a little closer and finds the problems. And that's why I think a lot of beginners get stuck, because they think the problem is, I need a better camera, I need a sharper lens, I need better presets. No, you need to decide what the photo is about before you hit the shutter. And this is something I still think about pretty much constantly when I'm shooting, especially at events. I shoot a lot of run and gun stuff. I don't get a second chance. You know, if I'm at work and a cadet is getting an award or someone's crossing home plate or there's a handshake or a salute, I don't have time to just hope something works. I have to know exactly what I'm trying to capture. Who is the subject? What is the moment? Where do I need to be to make that obvious? And once you start thinking like that, everything changes, because now you're not just taking pictures. You're building a frame around something that matters. If you're shooting a person, get closer than you think. Make it obvious. If you're shooting sports, pick a player, not the whole field, not something might happen over there. Pick a subject, anticipate, be ready. You will miss stuff. That's just the nature of it. But the stuff you get will be a million times better than just taking wide shots with a phone from the stands. And this is where composition comes in, even when you're moving fast. Because I think a lot of people hear the term run and gun and assume it means you just point the camera straight ahead and hope for the best using a fast burst mode. That's not what it is. You can still be intentional, even when things are happening quickly. One of the biggest things I see, everything is shot dead center, straight on from eye level, every single time. It's like people just lift the camera, stand there, and shoot exactly what their eyes see. That's the fastest way to make your photos look flat and boring. Move, like physically move. Take 2 steps to the left, 2 steps to the right. Drop down lower, shoot up at your subject. Get higher if you can, and shoot down, shoot through stuff. Put things in the foreground and focus on your subject in the background. Change something, because even a small change in angle can completely change how a photo feels. And if you're shooting sports, don't just stand in one spot the whole game. Shift your position around the court or around the field based on what's happening. I talked about this in my last video. If I'm doing baseball, my team's batting, I'm over on first base side. If they're in the field, I'll be behind home plate or over on third base side. Get tight up against the fence. Shoot over the fence. You're not just reacting, you're setting yourself up for better composition before the moments actually happen. Same thing with, whatever event is going on. I shoot a lot of ceremonies, parades, things like that. If there's a handshake or a salute or an award moment, don't just stand directly in front and center every time like you're taking a yearbook photo. Slide off to an angle. Frame it so there's some depth. Let the background work for you instead of just being there. And even when you're moving fast, you can still make quick decisions. Where's the light coming from? What's in the background? Is there something distracting behind my subject? Can I shift 2 feet and clean that up? That takes half a second. But the truth is, run and gun doesn't mean careless. It just means fast decisions. And the more you practice that, the more natural it becomes. And this ties, I think, right back to the main point. When you actually know what your subject is, you start making better composition choices automatically. You start moving with purpose. You start framing with some intention instead of just standing there pressing the button and hoping something looks good later. That's the difference. That's how you go from I took a picture of something to I made a photo that people actually want to look at. And if you ever find yourself saying, this might be cool, stop. Ask yourself a simple question. What is the subject? If you don't have a clear answer, don't take the photo, or better yet, change something until you do. Because you can have the perfect lighting setup, perfect settings, perfect editing, and if there's no clear subject, it's still a bad photo. And editing should support the subject, not distract from it. If your editing is the first thing that people notice, you've already lost. Edit with a purpose. For yourself, not for others. Learn to keep it simple. Sometimes the smallest changes make a big difference. Don't go making things seem otherworldly just because you can. Just bring out the natural beauty of everyday life. So if you want to actually get better, stop thinking about your gear for a minute. Stop chasing presets. Stop trying to make your photos look like someone else's. And start asking, what am I actually taking a picture of? Because the difference between a snapshot and a photograph is intention. One just happened. The other was created. Once you start shooting with intention, you don't need to take 500 random shots hoping that one works. You don't need to turn your photo into something unrecognizable just to make it interesting. Your work starts to stand on its own. So yeah, the number one mistake I see in new photographers is they never decide what the photo is about, and everything else just falls apart from there.